In fact, I tell my founders, right, if I were to tell you one thing, that's the Goodwill, right? Let's make sure your stakeholders have that. My main idea behind this whole venture capital industry was two things, right?
हेलो दोस्तों, स्वागत है आपका टफ स्टोरी के एक छोटे से पार्ट में जो हमारे बड़े पॉडकास्ट का एक स्पेशल हाईलाइट है। अगर आपको ये क्लिप पसंद आए तो पूरा पॉडकास्ट जरूर देखें, लिंक आपको मिल जाएगी डिस्क्रिप्शन एरिया के अंदर। चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
बिफोर वी स्टार्टेड द पॉडकास्ट आप बोल रहे थे कि आप सोचते नंबर्स भी मैथ इंग्लिश में हो, बट आई एम श्योर जब पैसे की बात है तो रोकड़ा तो फिर माइंड में 1.25% 1.5% वो
Actually, I think the good part, जब dad made all of us go through the business side of things, right? He was very clear that education is the pillar on which we all will grow, right? So I think he encouraged us to think also in English, in numbers also, right? That was what. But his mental strengths were amazing. He could remember 5,000 customers, their articles, the amounts, all that in his head, right? And
जब आप बता रहे हो अमाउंट्स एंड नंबर्स, मतलब व्हाट वाज द बिजनेस, क्या
so
करते
this
थे
was
आप?
pawnbroking, right? Against gold only. So he was the least risk-taking person, available there. So we didn't do hand loans or something. This was against a mortgage, right? Which is not even land or something, and anything valuable which is gold, right? So that was what the business was. And I think whatever I learned is the B school for me while I did my ISB. But wahi se I think was the main learning of what I stand today.
बिजनेस फैमिली से जब आते हैं तो ये एक पॉजिटिव चीज़ होती है। मैं हमेशा ये बात करता हूँ कि एनीवन हु इज़ डूइंग बिजनेस एंड हु हैज़ कम फ्रॉम अ फैमिली विच इज़ इनटू जॉब्स, दे हैव एक्चुअली स्ट्रगल्ड अ लॉट, आई प्रॉब्ली प्रेज्यूम सो, क्योंकि बिजनेस फैमिली में तो हम पूरा दिन ही बिजनेस में ही सोचते हैं। बच्चों को मैं अगर 100 रुपये दे रहा हूँ तो मैं हिसाब कर रहा हूँ कि बेटे से क्या ROI निकलेगा, क्यों ले रहे हो पैसे, क्या फ़ायदा, हर चीज़ में फ़ायदा मुनाफा ये सब चीज़ें चलती हैं।
क्वेश्चन फॉर यू इज हाउ डिड योर डैड एम्फसाइज ऑन एजुकेशन विद योर होल फैमिली बीइंग इन बिजनेस एंड
So the part of the family which I'll allude to is a large family, right? And I think all of us are at least masters, right? I happen to do 2 masters, some did PhD, etc., right? So I think his idea was clear that each one has to stand on their own, right? And we do come from very humble beginnings, so and today where we stand, I think due credit to his futuristic outlook that how education will support that, right? Though मैं कभी भी I always wanted to grow the धंधा. That was my main idea.
You still wish?
I still wish. I think there was a huge scope, but we did not. I think he saw the struggles. Obviously, that's a problem, right? You see the struggles, you don't want your next generation.
धंधा नेक्स्ट लेवल में कर रहे हो अभी।
Correct. नहीं, मैं in fact what let's say with names, right, Muthuts or others are doing, I had that very idea to do it, right? And I told him, look, it's a huge space, right? Everyone wants to borrow money, and we used to do it at 12%, 16%.
1%, 1.25% मतलब।
So, it was amazing. And I think the goodwill that the business did, I think that I haven't seen, In fact, I tell my founders, right, if I were to tell you one thing, that's the goodwill, right? Let's make sure your stakeholders have that, right? You and your stakeholders. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It will come back to you.
Does goodwill in your business translate to success? Meaning you can't lose your clients' money.
Okay, so in my business, when you say venture capital industry, right? My main idea behind this whole venture capital industry was two things, right? One, to learn. It was very interesting to see so many different ideas, so many people working in so many different things, right? The other was to try and build things, right? So I think the goodwill, when I'm suggesting here, yes, you are definitely right that my investors should be protected and, hopefully make returns which are better than the market. But I think overall, everyone should also participate in the whole process. Like I have many of my limited partners, which we call investors, who actually are actively working along or, attend events, etc., learn about it, right? It's not only about the money, while money is an important part. See, the reason why startup investment is interesting, unlike, let's say, a real estate or a share market, is you can actually be a part of something.
Your problem solving.
And you learn a new thing, and especially you're doing something in your 9 to 6, you want to do something more, right? And that itch is there everywhere, right? People say in the West, people put 10% of their money in such alternate funds, right? India is still catching up, but I think it's to do with the itch of doing something more, which we all have in general, right? Might be some have it as a spiritual feeling, some might have it as sports, some might have it as the startup ecosystem.
उम्मीद है ये वीडियो आपके लिए यूजफुल और इंटरेस्टिंग रहा होगा। इस वीडियो को लाइक करना ना भूलें और टफ स्टोरी को यूट्यूब और सारे सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म पर फॉलो और सब्सक्राइब भी जरूर कर दीजिए। पूरा पॉडकास्ट देखने के लिए लिंक मैंने डिस्क्रिप्शन एरिया में दे दी है, जहां पर जाकर जरूर चेक करें। सो ये था एक काफी इंटरेस्टिंग वीडियो और मैं आपसे मिलता हूं हमारे अगले वीडियो में। तब तक के लिए गुड बाय।